Hello and welcome to This Week in Property. I'm your host, Richard Swan, and in today's show, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lady you can see on the screen just now, if you're watching in video mode. It's Christine Nicholson, a fabulous lady with quite an experience behind her. She has helped so many business owners, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of tips and tricks to help you lovely people watching and listening today as well. We're talking about a lady who is a multi-award-winning professional business mentor, helped tons of people. She was actually named as Business Mentor of the Year last year in 2021, but so much experience and knowledge that I'm quite sure when we dip into our conversation and get some of the, what things has she seen? What's the things that trip up people the most? How can she help people? We're going to go through all of that, because between what she's done, what she's helped, or anything that she's shared in some of her amazing books that she's also written as well, I'm sure it's going to help you today. So Christine, welcome and thanks for joining us on the show today.
After that introduction, I feel like I can only let people down. So thank you.
We've set the bar high, which is fantastic. And we're going to dip into a lot of this stuff, because you've seen a lot of things, through your own eyes and your own business, of course, but also through working and helping and supporting others. And I think what I'd like to do with you today is we'll take people on that journey. What things should we think about and focus on at the start, just getting going? And maybe there's entrepreneurs who are already underway. We'll look at that middle phase. And then, of course, there is an end, there is an exit, there is a retirement, call it what you will. We'll kind of look at those things throughout that timeline. But before you get into all this, before you became this person, this fabulous author and award-winning and this, that and the other, what was Christine's life like before this? Was it a different career, a different background for you?
I mean, to be honest, if you went back and spoke to the 16-year-old Christine when I left school, I couldn't have even dreamed of the journey that I've had.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I left school with like 5 scraped O levels. I don't know how I got them, to be honest, because I didn't do any work. It was the year I left school. It was brilliant sunshine, so a bit like we've got right now.
Yeah.
And then immediately going on to further education just wasn't really an option. I couldn't afford to do that, so I had to get into the workplace. So I knew that I wanted to follow my father into the Navy. And so but you couldn't join under the age of 18 without parental consent. And my dad said those famous words, "over my dead body." And I was tempted. So I went and worked for a bank for 3.5 soul-sucking years.
Wow.
And anybody who's out there that is doing something that they absolutely hate doing, can I just say, please do not spend another moment in that misery. There are always options. But I stuck with it, and I mean, I felt like I had no choice. I now know differently.
Sure.
And then I joined the Navy, and I had 5 of the best years of my life. So far, that feels like a whole load of fun. Right. And when I came out of the Navy, I literally sat there and I thought, I have no idea what I can do. I have no idea what I want to do. And I was literally completely open to anything that just fell at my feet. Right. And then through I knew, so one thing I did know though was I knew I had to get a professional qualification. So I knew I was going to go back to school. And I qualified as an accountant. And again, that was 4 years of night school where I just thought, oh my God, I can't believe this is what I'm signing up for. But I also knew that would open other doors for me. And it absolutely did. And my first job after I qualified, I went to work for a company that had started on the back of somebody being a builder. And then he couldn't get building materials fast enough to build way back in the 50s. So, and he was based out in the Channel Islands. So he then hired a ship to bring the building materials to Guernsey. And he had some spare capacity on this ship. So he got other people to fill the gaps on the ship. And before he knew it, he was hiring ships and then creating this freight ferry service. And then he had passengers who wanted to come on the ship. So then that turned into a passenger ferry service. And then he needed to get faster ships. So that turned into investing in and developing a fast ferry catamaran with a very special engine.
Wow.
And then roll forward like 40 odd years, nearly 50 years. And they had this very messy business that was property and ships and you name it, 40 different companies across 24 time zones. And it was this real bundle of, it was like a basket of balls of wool.
Right.
It all got tied up.
Right,
and
all
so,
tangled. Right.
And so my apprenticeship was, you know, my job description had two lines on it, which was what was so exciting. It was find ways of keeping us legal. So I had to do accounting-y things. But because I hate doing that, I made sure it was all automated. So I put processes in place so that I wouldn't have to think about it. And then I went and did the interesting stuff. You know, we did a £2 million refurbishment on a concrete monstrosity of a building. We turned it into something rather lovely. We built combined ambient and refrigerant storage units. I completely changed the way that the dock system worked in terms of the way that manpower was controlled. We introduced a website and technology, and yeah, it was. If I always thought that the Navy was like 5 years of the best years of my life in my 20s, and going to work for this company, 5 of the best years of my life in my 30s, and the absolute platform for which I went on to do absolutely everything else.
That's amazing. And it's almost as if those two stories are happening in parallel, because you know you're painting the picture of that business owner and they're doing something out of necessity. I need to solve this problem by doing this. And then all of a sudden, as you painted there in that wonderful picture, that then evolves into a whole new surprise that you just, oh my goodness, I don't know where this is going. But at the same time, you're there as well on your own personal individual journey. You're just trying to go on with this job and tick off these boxes, and all of a sudden it's opening these different boxes and doors for you as well at the exact same time. Is that something you see quite a lot, you know, when you speak to, you know, different business owners, entrepreneurs, etc., that there's these, I don't know how you would look at it, but you don't really see the full picture going forward, but once you get there you can certainly see back and join all the dots to it. Is that quite common?
It's extremely common, and I think because people who are entrepreneurially minded see opportunity. And it's one of the reasons why I find a great deal of joy in speaking at a lot of property events, because the people who are there know that they want to focus on something related to property, and but they're generally split into those who've actually nailed it, and you know, they know there's always something else to learn, but actually they've managed to tease out all the bits of wool and make them into some kind of order in their business, but they've generally made the mess first. Right. And then there's a whole load of other people who are kind of just wanting to jump in. You know, they see the people who've nailed it, and then they go, like, I just need to be in this. I need to get started. And therefore they don't necessarily get started with the end in mind. And they very quickly find themselves in what I call the messy middle. Which is where they start thinking about, well, I've seen all these opportunities and I've done as much as I can with the opportunities that I've had, but I haven't really thought about the order of these things. So they might be making a lot of money. In fact, some of them are probably making less money than they should be, but it's still more money than they've ever made before. But they haven't necessarily got things in an order, i.e. the business can't live without them. And that's the next, this messy middle is you go into it thinking, I'm just going to grab everything I can. And then when you're actually in it and you realize what a mess it is, then you start making order out of it. That's where real value is, when you start taking yourself out of the business and actually letting it, you don't let it run itself. You get it into such an order where it doesn't need you. And it's got everything it needs in it and nothing that it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. That efficiency that we're all striving for somehow.
Mm.
Yeah, no, totally. And obviously, it's a thing that gets reflected by a lot of people. Like your Seth Godin's, Tim Ferriss, these kind of guys point to mind where they talk about working on the business, not in the business. You're not getting dragged down to the nitty gritty daily tasks that really, really require you. No, I can actually step away from this. I can go and look at something else in the business. I can go and look at a completely different venture, but I have got it set up, systemized, staffed, something that it can at least function without me, being there every second of every hour. Fascinating stuff. So if we use that timeline, the start, the middle, the messy middle, as you like to call it, and that end, exit, retirement, what you want to call it. So the start piece, is there any common themes that you see that, if they could just get me in at the start, Richard, if I could just tell them these top 3 things to focus on, or make sure they've got this thought about or mapped out, or might be the other way, make sure they don't do this or don't do that. What kind of things pop into your mind, for that starting phase for a business owner?
So I give you 3 things: 2 do's, 1 don't.
Right.
So I'll do the don't really easily first. Absolutely do not buy swag. Buy swag, I mean anything that you don't need. Right. Like seriously, people start off and they think, oh, I've got to have this and I've got to have that, and I've got to have the mugs and the pens and the everything's got to be branded and all this kind of stuff. Seriously, no one cares about your brand except you, because when you're starting, you do not have a brand. You've got a logo. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you call. Nobody cares what you look like. What they do care is how they feel when they've been served by you in some way. So don't spend money on stuff you don't need to.
Love it.
But the 2 do's are, the first thing is always planning. An hour of planning is worth 10 hours of doing. And I wish I could claim that was my thing. And I can't remember where I learned that, but it's absolutely true. And the one thing I know about property developers is you have no choice but to go through the planning process. So you've generally got to go through some kind of government planning, and then you've got to get contracts in place, and it's about getting the right people doing the right things at the right time for the right reason. And if you and then a lot of people think, oh, business planning, it's too complicated, I'm too small, it's just me on my own. Tosh. Everybody can plan, and it's really easy. Don't overcomplicate it, because all you need to do is know where you're going and how you're going to get there. So you're here and you want to get here in a particular period of time. And then it's about looking at what the resources are that you need to get there. Now, typically what happens right at the beginning is planning goes out the window. We're just desperately trying to get our first customer, and we're desperately trying to get paid by our first customer. And then the cycle just gets bigger and bigger, because it's always getting the customer, getting paid, and getting, but a little bit of planning and actually thinking about this, the vision of where you want to get to will really, really help you. And then the second to do, and the final of the 3, is whenever even when you're at the beginning, you will be doing. And what you need to do is document that doing, so that when you're doing something over and over again, if you document it, it means that it's really easy for you to then pass that on to someone else. And if you start that as early as possible, you've already got a training manual for bringing new people in. And if you've got those documents already in place before you recruit the people, well, one, you can actually say, this is what I want them to do. So now I know who I need to recruit, the kind of person that I need to recruit. Oh, and I now know what they need to be doing on day 1. And if you get the right people in, then they will improve that process. So I always say planning and processes, which is what I've just been talking about. And they're 2 quite difficult things in people's heads, but actually they're really, really simple. It's just that your head tries to complicate things.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Because, if I say to someone, a training manual, all of a sudden they've got this big thing in there. Oh, no, I've not got time for that, Richard. I'm just starting my business here. Whereas if you just said, no, if you're doing this thing here over and over and over again, you obviously know it. You obviously know what you're doing. just write it down, just scribble it down, mind map, a sketch, I don't care what, because it's something you can refine, isn't it? And it's something, once you train someone, I think I found that a lot in businesses where I might put the process into place as far as I know, but the second that I sit down with someone else and go, can you follow that for me? Straight away there's feedback, straight away there's questions. What do you mean by this, Richard? And can I do this bit before this, or does it have to be after this? And of course that's unraveling even more of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the great ways of really improving efficiency is that getting someone else to do it and seeing it through their eyes. Because I always say that as a business owner, you have 3 jobs.
Right.
Getting and keeping customers, staying legal, and making getting and keeping customers or staying legal more efficient. Now, if you look at everything that you did today, or everything you've got in your calendar, and you actually apply one of those 3 tags to it, then you will also see in your diary or in your calendar a lot of things that don't have those tags attached. And guess what? You can stop doing those. You can absolutely stop doing those, because it isn't getting or keeping a customer. And by that I mean getting a customer or keeping a customer by adding value. Stop doing it. And honestly, I can guarantee you that the only people who will notice will be the customers that you don't want anyway.
Right, gotcha.
Because things that don't add value never ever generate complaints unless you've got a customer that you're never going to keep happy. And the minute they complain about these hygiene factors, then they're probably putting up their hand as, I'm a customer who probably should be culled the next chance you get.
I love that. I like that focus. And it's simple, as most wisdom is. It's a simple thing. You know, here's a way you can improve. You can keep this going this way. Here's a place you can find efficiency. And actually, here's a place you just shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be spending your time here, or with this customer, or with this task, or whatever it is. I love that. I love that.
It's a bit like I speak a lot to property management companies who, you know, they may be managing property for another property owner. So the owner isn't necessarily managing their own property. Yeah. And they'll be under quite a lot of pressure to make sure that there's a higher yield in their property, particularly multi-occupancy properties. And I always think that there's a really easy principle in business, and particularly in property. So if you've got several rooms or maybe several flats in a block, then you always want to be bringing the new tenant in at the highest rate that you can get in. And therefore you want to make sure that you're always getting the cheapest tenant out, and making sure that because the person who's paying you the least is generally the one that's causing you the most problems.
That's right. The beautiful Pareto's principle, isn't it, of the 80-20 rule?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with businesses. I mean, I always say, I did this with an accountant, and it was she wasn't making any money, right? But she had lots and lots of clients. And I said, well, if you took off the bottom 10% of your clients and actually just moved them elsewhere, that gives you all of this time, because the ones that are paying the least are definitely taking up the most time. And now, okay, it gives you a cash flow challenge, but you also now have the time to go and get a customer to come in at the top, the top fee. So, and that one, if you just get one of those clients that replaces 3 of those bottom clients, and that top client will now take a whole lot less time and at least only a third of these bottom ones. So now you've got 2/3 more time. So actually what we did was, if we took a range of her clients, this being the bottom and this being the top fee, all we did was we just kept on culling off the bottom 10% as we got new clients in the top. Well, what that did is it's elevated her fees.
Exactly.
She hasn't had to recruit any more manpower.
Yeah, that's right. You've used that same capacity, but just expanded it completely differently. I love that. That's fantastic. So we get right. It's okay. So this is great. Brilliant. I knew this conversation was going to be great today. I was looking forward to it. So we've got that start and things to do and the don'ts, fantastic, and the people, the processes, etc. So the messy middle, that bit you love to play with and tidy up. If I pick a wee quote about your fantastic work, someone that has spotted the fact that Christine, over many, many years, has been able to help businesses increase the profits and the value of their businesses while working fewer hours and with less stress and anxiety. Now, people listening in and watching in, they're thinking that's a unicorn I've just described. Is this even possible? Because I've arrived at that messy middle, Richard. Oh my goodness, you've no idea. I'm up to my eyes. The stress is through the roof. There is no space. There is no possibility I can untangle these little woolen balls that Christine's talking about just now.
Yeah.
Is there hope for them?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, it's like everything that is going to take you out of what seems like an overwhelming or completely challenging situation. It's always going to be a bit more painful before it gets better. Right. And it's just recognizing the pain that you have to go through, not the pain that you're going through. Because some of the pain that you are currently going through in that messy middle is completely self-inflicted, and it's all caused by 7 inches, and it's the 7 inches between your ears. And I guarantee you that we can reduce 25% of your immediate pain literally with 1 session just on what's going on in here. And I'm not a psychologist either. I come from the University of Tough Love. I'm often called the no BS lady. I am very direct. So I just call people out on what's going on in their heads. And usually they'll think that the solution is to address a particular symptom. And I just say, let's go straight to the root cause. And there may be some times where you're going to do things that are going to make you feel really uncomfortable. But there's that old Winston Churchill saying is, when in hell, keep going. So you're already in hell. And if you stop, you're going to stay there. So you have to move through it. But I guarantee that there's very few people that I haven't been able to help. And I've had some brutal conversations with, I'm really sorry, you haven't got a business. Right. And the only thing I can do is I can send you to the best insolvency practitioner that I know, but you need to recognize you haven't got a business. Wow. And that's tough to have those conversations, but there's just no point in me saying, oh yeah, just keep paying me some money and eventually it'll be all right, because I just know it's not going to be all right. Yeah. So, and I don't work with people I can't help, by the way. So, right. I mean, one of the things that I'm always really very certain about is that I have to be able to add value. And if I don't think I can, then I'll point you somewhere that will. And the other thing is, sometimes I don't want to. So really? I'm really brutal about that. It's like, I can help you, but do you know what? You and me, we'd drive each other mad. Right, it's just not a fit. Yeah. Okay. Why would you put yourself through that pain? Why would I put myself through that pain? I've got a choice. No, exactly. But equally, if I don't think I can do it without literally driving you mad, then there are other people who are out there who fill the gap for me. So yeah, has that been hard at times? To face that with someone, they're just not getting it, or they just don't have that mindset to push on and do the things that you're telling them. They're going to work. You're showing them it, but they're just not going there. You're just refusing, or they're pushing back from it, rejecting it. Can it be a hard place or you got used to it? I over the years, I've got a bit more savvy about recognizing the people that are not going to do the work that they need to do. Right. Like I mean, this is why I can call myself a mentor. I have actually been exactly where the client has been. Yeah. Like, I've been in your shoes. I've been on my knees. I've been in the big hole with the shovel, digging myself even deeper. You know, it's like, it's not that, obviously everybody portrays the image that they want people to see. Yeah, I've had great successes, but I've failed. And when I failed, oh boy, did I. I mean, I didn't just go in, you know, I didn't just dip my toes in the failure lake. I dived right in. So, and then I've had to pull myself up and go, hold on a minute, what's at play here is my ego. And if I look at this logically, if I was my own client, I look at this logically, I have to walk away from this, because I'm not going to make enough money out of this. I'm going to be a slave to my business. I'm already really miserable. So, you know, you need to close the door on things. And I do see people who stoically keep going when they absolutely need not to, and they are hurtling into bankruptcy. And there's nothing I can do. I can't put the brake on for them. You have to put the brake on yourself.
No, definitely. And is it that, it was funny you mentioned that, because I could picture you beside a business owner. I could visually see you, and the point is, you're separate from them. Is that one of the big things that you can bring as a mentor? You know, it's not just, you know, how clever you are, your experience, your knowledge, how you can solve puzzles, etc., but it's the fresh pair of eyes. It's someone disconnected from the emotion inside the mess, if it's there in the middle. Is that one of the big powers of yourself, of a mentor?
Oh, definitely. Power of a mentor is that external view, because you have to strike the balance of, you're in an intimate relationship with the business owner. So you're mentoring the business owner, or you're mentoring the people. You're not mentoring the business. You know, the business is an inanimate object. And it's one of the parts of this kind of head trash is that, oh, you know, my business is my baby. No, it's not. Your baby is your baby. You know, your children were your babies. Your business is just it's an economic vehicle, mostly for gathering taxes. You know, and for serving the lifestyle that you want. So it's not your baby. And the minute you detach yourself emotionally from that, but as a business mentor, you're automatically detached. And it is, you know, there's a very fine line between, you know, the intimacy of this relationship that you have with the business owner, because, you know, I've had them phoning me up saying, you know, friends and family have died, or oh, and my dog's died, that's a big one, or, you know, my wife has left me, or, you know, one of my children has done XYZ. And you know, I've had a guy phone me up and he said, you know, my daughter's just come out to me.
Oh wow. And I'm like, it's got that personal. That's incredible.
And I'm like, yeah, how's that a business issue? And he went, I just don't know who else to talk to. He said, honestly, he said, I just don't know who I need to say out loud some things, and I need to say them out loud to somebody I know isn't going to judge me. And so they, you know, I get them processing.
That's incredible. It just shows how much you build up your rapport, your connection, your understanding with them. You know, that they feel that safe to be vulnerable with you. That's fantastic. That speaks a lot about you. That's fantastic.
Not so popular with when it's at 6 o'clock in the morning, I have to say, but
we've got to get the timing right. Yes.
But now I have boundaries. I mean, we spoke before we came on air about putting the do not disturb on.
Yes, that's right.
I learned all the do not disturb buttons for all of my connection devices. And it's like 10 o'clock at night, well, you ain't gonna get me.
Love it. No, you've got to have that. You've got to protect your boundaries, that's for sure. So there's that messy middle where I'm sure most of the chaos goes on. The third piece of that puzzle coming out of there, you know, I mentioned the words like retirement, exit strategies, business sale, etc. Again, what's your thoughts in that arena? How should someone think about it? What are any of the do's and don'ts? And do you think about it then? Or presumably you should be thinking about that a lot earlier and planning towards it?
Yeah, actually, let's come back to the having a baby. Like the best time to think about the birth is the day of conception. Actually, it's probably 3 weeks before conception, but you know, it's if you're thinking about the end of your time in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And 100% of business owners leave their business. Just to let that settle, 100% of business owners leave their business one way or another. So it's much better for a business owner to think about how they're going to leave and be prepared. Because another massive statistic is about 70% of all business owners are going to rely on their business to provide them with the funding for their retirement. And yet only 2% of business owners know exactly how much their business is worth.
Wow, that's small. 2%.
Big gap.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
incredible.
The best time to think about the end is right at the very beginning.
Of course.
But the next best time is now. And the next best time is now. It's like, start thinking about it now and start doing something about it tomorrow. And there are a couple of things that you can do really, really quickly that are going to add great value. And I already spoke about them, which is one's planning and the other one is processes, because it's about having a plan for what the end might look like. And thinking about, how you can get yourself out of the day-to-day. And then, of course, it's easy to get out of the day-to-day if you've got processes in place. Yes. But having a succession plan and then having an exit plan is really good, because more than 50% of business owners actually leave their business in unplanned and are due to unexpected circumstances, unexpected events.
Right.
So if you think about that, 1 in 2 business owners is going to either die or have a death in their family. Yeah. They're going to become deceased or disabled. And sometimes people lose their businesses through divorce. But if you think about so I always call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the 4 Ds. But if you think about death, disease, and disability, divorce less so, but sometimes that can come and hit you. These are all things that come out of the blue and they swipe you off at the knees. That if you've already got your business prepared and planned for when it doesn't need you, then if you were to die, for example, then your family don't suffer from almost a triple whammy. So the first thing is you're dead.
Yeah.
It's a loss of a loved one. It's absolutely devastating. Second is now they've got a business that they don't know how to operate and is actually their primary source of income. So they've lost their primary source of income, or now that's at risk. And then the third thing is there's this asset there that within 12 months of a business owner dying or becoming unable to work in it on a day-to-day basis, within 12 months, a sizable number, and I would say the majority of businesses go into insolvency within 12 months of a business owner dying. It's a bit for the people who are left behind, it's a proper triple whammy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it's a horrible situation. It's the black scenario, the worst case scenario, whatever, but you have to plan for it. It's just like anything else in business. If there's a risk, you have to mitigate against the risk. You have to plan what you're going to do to deal with it and prepare for it, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody wants to think about dying. But the best time to do it is definitely before you're dead.
There's not much you can do once you've reached that stage.
And it's like talking when I'm, I remember somebody a long time ago when they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm an exit planner." And they went, "Oh, that must be a hard sale." And I thought, well, I suppose it's a bit like life assurance. Like people either get it or they don't. And I did make my life a whole lot easier when I realized that people who don't get it just don't get it, and they're never going to get it.
No.
But the people who do get it, they really switch on to it, and it's not it's not difficult. It can be a bit time consuming. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. And there's something that everyone can do today that would make an impact tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. Getting ahead of it all. I love that. That's fantastic. Now, I want to be respectful of your time. You've given so much value there. I know people are going to be constantly processing this. I'll probably replay this. And what did you say about the start? What did you say about the middle? So that's fantastic. I want you to kind of touch upon reflecting backwards. When you look back on what you've done with, helping so many businesses, the ups and downs, the challenges, the successes, is there a particular challenging time that pops up for you? You thought, oh, wow, that was really tough to get through. Now that you look back, is there a particular scenario story that, oh, that was a real satisfaction and an amazing milestone for me? And one of the things I've got to get you to touch upon, and I don't know if it falls into maybe a challenge or a success, but for anyone listening who thinks, oh, I've seen it all, Christine, see my business, I have seen it all. Well, this lady, that quote unquote, was involved in the running of a zoo in the middle of a desert.
Yes.
What on earth? Can you touch upon that?
Well, and it has a property link as well. So
oh, fantastic.
There is a place in, it's called Elaine Wildlife Park, and it's in the UAE, and it is in the middle of the desert, right on the Oman border. And I went to the UAE ostensibly to support my husband's career.
Right.
And within a few weeks of being out there, I was a housewife, and I thought, it'd be nice to not work for a bit. I just sold the last business and I was really exhausted. But I mean, we're talking about 15 minutes in, I was bored stupid. And I literally met some people in there was a restaurant by a swimming pool. And to cut a long story short, I was in the swimming pool 1 minute, I heard the word accountant, I was out in the swimming pool talking to somebody. Anyway, I ended up getting this job, which was, my posh title was Director of Strategic Finance. And my job was to take what had been a master plan, a kind of dreamscape, and put it into 16 commercial elements, and then go and put those commercial elements into reality, and negotiate contracts around them, get planning and all of those things. And it was everything from infrastructure right the way through to an iconic museum which has now been built.
Wow.
And I'd only been there a couple of weeks, and it used to start fairly early in the morning, and I'd get into my office. And I could always see in the office next door, which was the zoo director, there was always a queue outside the door of people going in there. And I used to think, well, he must have a tough job. And anyway, one day I walked in and the queue wasn't round his office anymore. It was outside my office. And I had an assistant, and as I walked in, I got my coffee, and I said to my assistant, what's going on? And she said, oh, the zoo director got fired yesterday. She said, so tag, you're it.
Oh my
and that was
goodness.
it. I was there for a year running the zoo while they found a replacement zoo director. I knew nothing about the zoo. I thought I was there to get hotels and villas built.
Yeah.
And to get drainage and all of that kind of stuff put in. But all of a sudden I'm sitting opposite zookeepers saying, well, the feed for the gazelles didn't turn up today, what do you want me to do? Let me just go to my cupboard where I've got a whole 6 tons of deer food, and it was extraordinary. And what was really extraordinary was that whole operation had very informal systems, very informal processes, but they were entirely informal, and they relied on the personnel and the personalities. And of course, you take one person out of that and it all starts to creak. And so the real valuable lesson there was, absolutely, it's about not only making sure you've got the right person doing the right job at the right time for the right reason, but also making sure that that person is replaceable. And you know what it takes to replace that person, including yourself. And so that was a real experience. It was.
That's a good way of putting it.
Fabulous. I used to drive around on a little golf cart, and I used to zip around the zoo. And oh my God, I used to treat this thing like a racing cart. And had a few 2-wheel moments on it, which was great.
Christine, you're ruining the image of you for me. And now I've got Carol Baskin from Tiger King in my head. Now, come on, don't mix up those two images. That's amazing, absolutely amazing. I think you've now put a lot of things in perspective. If someone has a surprise email pop up, or they get an interesting challenge put in their inbox, they should think about the story of what you get put into. That's amazing. So the challenges, milestones, the kind of success, satisfaction, what things would you grab? Would it be the zoo? Is that one of them?
Do you know what? The zoo was funny and interesting, but not anywhere near the kind of biggest challenge.
Right.
The biggest challenge really is my first business, what I call my first grown-up business. It was in property, or it was in healthcare, but I was buying properties as part of a healthcare business. And I really didn't know what I was doing. And I spent a year literally by the seat of my pants. And it was only, I was afraid to ask for help because I was afraid to look like I didn't know what I was doing. And every day I would wake up scared about what was going to turn up today because I just didn't have a grip of it. And one thing that, so the big, for me, big lesson in that was I could have asked for help a whole lot earlier. I could have asked for it right at the very beginning. I would have got it and nobody would have thought any less from me. Yeah. But it took me a long time being incredibly stressed to ask for help. So there's no shame in asking for help. But equally, I built that company from a business idea it's still around today, founded it in 2002. It's still going strong. We got initial investment of about £1 million, didn't ask for a single penny more, and built the business based on reinvesting the profits. And for me, my biggest achievement really was actually getting that business off the ground. It wasn't what it looks like now. It's the fact that it wouldn't even exist if I hadn't got it off the ground.
That's tremendous. You actually you manifested that you created. That is something to be very, very proud of. You know, it's brilliant when we can do that, have a little reflection time on what we've achieved. Sometimes we don't take a space to look backwards and, you know, give ourselves a wee pat in the back for that to push us on to the next chapter. Wonderful stuff. And my final question, more of a personal one. And I'm thinking about all the stuff you've shared here, because that whole early basis of, you know, going towards the Navy and good old dad saying over my dead body, but finally getting there and enjoying those 5 years, and then moving into the business world in 5 years, you mentioned within the 30s in there as well. All the successes and challenges and clients and everyone you've worked with and so on and so forth, writing books, zoos in the middle of deserts, all sorts of things. What do you think your journey has taught you about you? What's your journey taught you about Christine?
Oh my God, that is one of the toughest questions. I think it comes back to that help thing. What it's really taught me is I've strived my entire life to always be one step ahead of anybody else. And now I'm in my 50s, and I realize that, and I have been helped. I've seriously been helped along the journey. I've stood on the shoulders of my own mentors, and they have been giants, invisible people who aren't particularly famous. And what I've realized is that and this isn't a sales pitch, it is the power of the mentors in my life who have helped me even when I haven't recognized that I needed the help. And they've guided me to ask the right questions. But with everything, it's knowledge is nothing without action. And it's, you can know all of this stuff, but you need to go and act on it. And the people who've helped me the most are the ones who've said, it's all very well, all this learning, but you need to go and actually do something with it. And be helping people help themselves is probably my biggest achievement. And it's also being helped to help people has been the biggest thing that I've learned about myself.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Fabulous insights there. That was tremendous. So everyone listening and watching, whenever it's safe to do so, jump inside the show notes page. You'll see all the links off to Christine. You know, get her books, hook into her, follow her online. And if you're in case of needing that mentor, she's there for you. You know, are you at the nice, exciting, fresh start? Are you in that messy middle? Or are you trying to think about the end of the exit? Whatever it is, this lady is here to help you if it's a good fit, of course, as she mentioned earlier. Fantastic. Christine, for your time today, for everything you've helped to serve, thanks a million.
No, thank you so much for having me on and asking some pretty challenging questions. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. Remember, with the guests that you just saw, go into the show notes for the page because all of their links are there so that you can get in touch and to get more information. And talking about getting more information, more guests, more insights, more knowledge, etc., make sure you're subscribed. Get the subscription done, get the notifications on, and then we'll always keep in touch with you every single time a brand new show is going to come out. So thanks for tuning to This Week in Property.